The new supreme leader of Iran, Mojtaba Khamenei, has vowed to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed in a statement read out on state television, his first communication since taking over from his father. After 3 more cargo ships were attacked in the Gulf today, oil prices again rose above $100 a barrel. The International Energy Agency says that the war is now creating the biggest oil supply disruption in history.
A region in flames. Oil tankers in Iraqi waters under fire last night. Bahrain, Dubai, Beirut, just some of the locations hit overnight. The light of day showing the damage, but not an exit route from a war that reverberates across the globe. Iran's new supreme leader issued his first statement today. Though he was neither seen nor heard, Mojtaba Khamenei's words were defiant, saying attacks on US bases in the region would continue and the Strait of Hormuz should remain closed to put pressure on the enemy. That enemy, though, says the war is already won.
They've got no Navy, they've got no Air Force, they've got no anti-air traffic anything. They have no systems of control. We're just riding free range over that country. And now we're going to look very strongly at the Straits. The Straits are in great shape. We've knocked out all of their boats. They have some missiles, but not very many. I think we're in very good shape.
Mr. Trump's assertions about the Strait of Hormuz are not shared by many of those tasked with moving through the vital supply corridor, with yet more projectiles hitting a container vessel in the strait earlier. Amid fears that the promised quick end to this war might not transpire after all, oil prices breached $100 a barrel again today before falling back.
The region is being pushed to the breaking point, and the consequences are cascading around the world. Disrupted trade, rising energy and food prices, deepening insecurity and instability.
That instability is particularly acute in Lebanon, where Israeli airstrikes hit a building in the heart of the capital today. And Israel ordered yet more residents out of the south of the country as it continues its offensive against Hezbollah, and the number of dead and displaced in Lebanon and across the Middle East continues to rise. Fiona Mitchell, RTE News.
The February 28th strike on a girls' elementary school in Iran, which killed at least 175 people, was the result of a targeting error by the US military, according to preliminary findings of a report. The US military investigation has determined that coordinates for the strike used outdated information. US President Donald Trump has repeatedly denied that America is responsible.
What happened here may prove to be one of the gravest military errors in living memory. At least 175 people, most of them children, were killed at Shajara Tayyeba Elementary School. Before that morning, the world had never heard of it. The school was thousands of kilometres from Tehran, in a small town on Iran's southern coast called Minab. It was just one of dozens of targets in what the US military called a campaign of precision strikes. So how did an elementary school end up in the crosshairs, reduced to rubble? Satellite imagery helps explain how. The school sat directly beside an Iranian Revolutionary Guards naval base. At one point, it may even have been part of the base. But years before the strike, the school had been walled off from the rest of the compound. Then came February 28th. Satellite images taken after the strike show widespread damage to both the naval base and the school building. In Washington, the denials came quickly.
Did the United States airstrike a girls' elementary school and kill 175 people?
Not that we know of, Sean.
Based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
But one video made the denials hard to believe. It appears to show a Tomahawk cruise missile striking close to the school. and only one country in this conflict is known to use them: the United States. Despite the weight of evidence, the president is still not ready to accept it.
Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
With 175 graves already filled, the preliminary findings suggest he may not find it easy reading. Edmund Heafy, RTÉ News.
US President Donald Trump has repeatedly said that the US has won the Iran war and that he'll end the war soon. But has the United States underestimated Iran, and could this turn into a war of attrition? Our Washington correspondent Jackie Fox reports.
Operation Epic Fury has raised many questions, mostly why.
Trump has given a lot of contradicting rationales for the war in Iran, but none of them really hold up to scrutiny when you analyze them, whether it be the nuclear program, the ballistic missile program, freeing Iranian people from tyranny. These seem to be rationales thrown at an already predetermined course of action, which was military intervention.
Some analysts say the Trump administration grossly underestimated Iran's response.
This is comparatively a repeat of the United States in the Vietnam War. We won every tactical battle. We had enormous support or advantages over the North Vietnamese. We just practically bombed them into the Stone Age, and yet they never capitulated. When President Trump goes out there, when Secretary Hegseth, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and they list all these things we've destroyed and all these percentages that allegedly they're reduced, et cetera, you see the proof in the pudding. On the ground, Iran remains viable.
Donald Trump has said it's up to him to declare when this is over. But is it?
To an extent, sure. Of course, a lot of this comes down to the personal decisions of Donald Trump, but a lot of this comes down as well to what Iran will do. If the United States declares victory and tries to walk away, will Iran still keep launching missiles and drones, particularly if Israel continues the campaign? These are all unknowns, and this is, one of the reasons why many of us were cautioning against initiating this war to begin with, because you just don't know where this goes from here.
For the White House, the challenge is not just how to fight this war, but how to explain its cost, consequences, and how it ends. Messaging that has been inconsistent so far.
Well, let's get more on this now from Jackie, who's in Washington. Jackie, the questions are certainly mounting for the US about this war, aren't they?
They are, Sharon. This war is really at a crossroads. And as you heard there is a fear that this could turn into a devastating, messy, drawn-out conflict that could go on for years unless Donald Trump puts a stop to it. The Trump administration is coming under pressure too. Questions surrounding that strike on an Iranian school. Was this down to the US military's use of AI? Was it down to outdated intelligence? Will there be any accountability here? There's also a question about the cost of this operation. American military officials told US lawmakers that the first 6 days of war cost over $11 billion, and that is a low estimate, and it's thought that the White House will ask for more funding for this operation. There's also the question surrounding the Strait of Hormuz and when that will reopen. Not today, said the Energy Secretary. He said the US Navy is not ready to escort ships through the strait. So we're really entering an uncertain phase here with those rising prices, unanswered questions, and no clear timeline, Sharon.
Separately, Jackie, this evening there are reports coming in of a shooting at a synagogue in Michigan. What more can you tell us about that?
That's right, Sharon. Police are responding to an active shooter and car ramming incident at a synagogue near Detroit, around 30 kilometres outside of Detroit in Michigan. Now, the area has a preschool and a creche in it, therefore all schools are in lockdown in the area. It's still a developing story, but we heard from a local sheriff that there are no apparent injuries, but the suspected shooter is dead. The Governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, has also released a statement saying violence and anti-Semitism, there is no place for both of them in Michigan.
Jackie Fox from Washington, thank you for that. Well, for the first time in the Middle East war, Iran and Hezbollah launched a joint operation firing rockets at more than 50 targets in Israel. Israel hit back with warplanes bombing Lebanon almost immediately afterwards. Officials say Israeli strikes have so far killed 687 people in Lebanon and injured more than 1,700. Nearly 1 million people have been displaced because of evacuation orders. Just before coming on air, I spoke to Chief International Correspondent for the London Independent, Belle True, who's in Beirut, and I asked her about the latest strikes on the capital this evening.
Well, it's been pretty kinetic here in Beirut. We had some extraordinary evacuation orders from the Israeli military, who put a very central neighbourhood of Beirut as an area that people had to evacuate. Shortly afterwards, we had a barrage of missiles, which I watched from a sort of area nearby on two buildings in the area that Israel said were Hezbollah infrastructure. But this is in the very heart of the city. And this, of course, comes after an incredibly difficult night here in Beirut, probably the hardest night of the bombing we've had since this escalation began about 10 days ago. So Beirut feels very much like it's under fire. And it's not just the southern suburbs, but we also had a strike on the waterfront this morning that, according to the Lebanese authorities, killed at least 12 people. So the bombing of Beirut continues. And we just had word in the last few minutes that Israel is also bombing the south of Lebanon simultaneously.
And that area, the waterfront that you mentioned, there were a lot of displaced people who were staying there, sleeping rough, I guess. Where is safe for people to go at the moment, or do they simply not know?
The short answer to that is they simply don't know. I was talking to people who were displaced, who were sleeping in tents, some of them just sleeping in mattresses in the open air. They've fled areas in the southern suburbs of Beirut that's come under incredibly hard bombing, also the south of Lebanon. Some of the people I spoke to who were eyewitnesses to the attack on the waterfront yesterday, who described seeing shredded bodies and blood everywhere. Some of them are Syrian refugees. So they fled war in Syria, they fled multiple conflicts in Lebanon, and now they're living under tarpaulin and with blankets in the open air under fire. It's very difficult to know exactly where is safe. The Israeli military is putting out these evacuation orders, but they're really covering swathes of the country. In fact, they just pretty much doubled the evacuation zone in the south of Lebanon just in the last few hours, saying that everyone has to basically continue to move north. But they've also put evacuation areas in parts of Beirut. Obviously, the southern suburbs of the capital is also a no-go zone. So people are sleeping on the streets, they're sleeping in tents, they're sleeping in schools, they're sleeping in stadiums, and they're not guaranteed, to have safety wherever they are.
In his very first statement today, Iran's new supreme leader thanked the resistance front, which includes Hezbollah in Lebanon. So is there any evidence that Hezbollah have been impacted by these Israeli strikes?
So Hezbollah, obviously had quite a serious... So the strikes from Israel in 2024 had a serious effect on Hezbollah. In fact, Israel even took out their top leader, Nasrallah, in 2024. But they have had a year, I guess, to recuperate. But at the same time, they're also coming under extremely heavy fire across the country. So we're unclear right now what the situation is, but certainly Israeli fire is incredibly hard, and Iran is also suffering from that at the same time. But I was talking to Hezbollah officials today who said that they were determined to keep the pressure up on Israel. They fired a barrage of rockets overnight, which triggered Israel's response here in Beirut and in other areas of Lebanon, and they're determined to keep going. So that's why there is so much fear here on the ground that this is just the beginning, that even if Donald Trump decides to stop bombing Iran and end that theatre of war, right now this situation between Israel and Hezbollah with Iran's support is just beginning, and people will have to suffer for weeks, months or even longer.
Belle True, Chief International Correspondent with the London Independent, thank you for joining us from Beirut this evening.